Hey, everyone. I'm your host, James Jackson, and this is ARCast. Join me each episode as we shine the spotlight on a category management or shopper insights professional doing compelling work in the trenches. If you're ready, let's dive right in. I'm really excited because I haven't talked to her in over 10 years, but this is Martha Vargas, and she's a demand planner at Sesh Products. Martha, thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you, James. It really has been a long time since we chatted, and shame on us, but
I know.
That goes by, right?
Yeah.
We kept in touch a little
on LinkedIn.
So now we're gonna figure this out. We're gonna chat through a lot today. So I'm excited about this.
Yeah. So normally I go into the trenches, and you probably heard a couple episodes, but I do have a question for you. I kind of like to start things off and kind of blindside.
I actually have one for you too, just so you know.
Oh,
do you want to start first? Do you want me to start first?
You start first.
Okay. All right. This is now 2025, James. Things have changed drastically since we last talked in the category management space in Shopper Insights. How do you perceive AI will play a role in its coming years in Catman?
I've been working on that for like the past couple weeks. So we've done a lot of work trying to get ready. We know that our audience needs to learn about it, and that it's definitely going to impact category management and shopper insights. I will tell you that I think initially there was a lot of concern about, will AI take my job? I think we've come to the point AI won't take your job, but somebody who really understands it might. And so our job is to kind of bring AI and what it means and how it can help, or how you need to change in order to harness its power. So that's kind of the focus right now, but I do think it will impact category management and shopper insights. It should enhance things, make things go a lot faster in some instances. But that art and science that a human brings, that shouldn't change. So that's my quick thought on AI and category management.
Yeah. That's kind of where I'm seeing it too. I know we're going into the trenches a little bit, and we'll step back out. But I kind of see that too, in understanding the tools and the potential, and then inspecting them as well, because they're not always right.
100%.
And really, I think at the end of it, it's the consumer that AI will never understand, and how the consumer changes and grows and adapts and innovates.
Yes.
So that's where, I think you're right. It's a combo of the two.
Yeah.
And you really have to be connected at the end of the day to who your consumer is. So.
Yeah, and I think it'll help, because there's a lot of data, as you know, being thrown at people, and so being able to power through it. And the other thing I will tell you that we are talking about is we always look in the past. We need to be able to more forecast, predict, have an expectation, and that's where AI will help with that as well.
Yeah, that's awesome. Good answer. All right, now your turn.
Well, mine's a little more not business related. Again, we haven't talked in a while, and I thought about it. I'm like, Martha she's lived in a lot of cities.
Yes.
And so my question, I know you've been in San Francisco, Austin, you were here in Minneapolis. I think you're Chicago, and on and on and on. What's your favorite city?
Oh, gosh, you are hurting me. This is a tough one. I hope my family doesn't see this from any side of it. My favorite city is just at the core of Chicago, because that's just who I am. Yeah.
Okay, there you go.
The diversity of food and people, and the amount of things you could do is so varied that it's just super appealing to me. And, Minneapolis is fine for the time that I was there. But I wanted to kind of just grow a little bit. So I love Austin though. I actually really like this town, except for right now in the next 3 months, because
it's a little warm.
100 degree plus isn't my favorite thing, but other than that, it's great.
But you gave the perfect answer, Chicago.
It is Chicago.
Home of presidents and popes.
Yep, I was just there actually 2-3 days ago for a wedding, and of course Giordano's. I know there's a lot of debate there, but
Oh, you're old school with the Giordano's. Okay, there you
Giordano's,
go.
yeah. And
Awesome.
honestly, Home Run Inn pizza, they're my
Mm-hmm.
baby. They're my baby. I remember when I was 21 years old, I was in my MBA program. I wrote them a letter because I was really upset at an experience I had. And it was a very thoughtful letter, like 3 pages long about their operations and
Yeah.
whatnot. They came back and they're like, you need to talk to the vice president of operations. I said, okay, cool. So we had an hour meeting. They sent me like a $200 gift card as a thank you to really assess their operations a little bit more. So even then, I was curious in all this space of
Yeah.
food. But anyway, yeah, Home Run Inn is my jam.
Okay. All right. Well, wow, what a start. We have a lot more to talk about.
Yes.
So if you're ready, let's get in the trenches.
Let's get in the trenches.
You talked a little bit about Chicago. If anybody looks at your LinkedIn profile, they see you are a graduate of the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. And so that's where I went to school too. Why U of I?
First of all, ILL.
I-N-I.
Thank you. All right. ILLINI. All right.
Yeah.
Cool. It's actually really interesting. My parents were immigrants, and there's really no actual path for that. But I was always, really hungry to learn very early on. And when I was like 13 or 14 years old, my parents said, hey, here's an idea. Do you want to have your 15-year-old birthday party, quinceañera, which is thousands of dollars, or would you rather spend that money on your education for high school?
Wow.
No brainer for me. I mean, honestly, no brainer, right? So I'm like, take me to that Catholic high school. I was born Catholic, raised Catholic. I'm not super Catholic now, but I appreciate our Pope from Chicago being Catholic.
Yeah.
But yeah, so then from that point on, I went to that high school, Queen of Peace. They're actually no longer around. And then through that school actually is how I learned about a lot of things like engineering, which is how I started at U of I actually.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah. And I learned about U of I learned about college. I mean, it's kind of wild, but I learned so much through a counselor that passed away at Queen of Peace that actually kind of guided me to a place. Yeah. So when it came down to it, after I did a little bit of a stint at U of I, between my sophomore and junior year of high school, it was a 2-week program to learn about engineering. After that, I said, you know what, I think I should go to U of I. Let's just see how this engineering thing works out. Still didn't really have a whole lot of guys besides that counselor. So I said, I'm just going to apply to U of I. And then maybe UIC, University of Illinois, Chicago.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't work, I'll just go to Moraine Valley Community College here.
Yeah.
And then, things worked out, fortunately, in a different way. But I wasn't as thoughtful on the approach as I mentor people now. So, it was a learning experience for me then. And I'm so grateful it worked out that way. I am now, my niece is graduating U of I this week. Yeah. Okay. I have my godson, he's going to graduate U of I next year. I had a lot of other family that's graduated from U of I. I believe it would kind of paved the way a little bit for us.
So did you graduate with an engineering degree?
Well, so here's a really good story of learning about your skill sets and potential. So I went in and I actually had a little bit of problem with my writing. My math and science was okay, but it wasn't really on par to where a lot of people were at based on their education. So I tried really hard for a year and had some really great mentors that were graduate students and professors during that time. And I just said, you know what, I can't do this. I wasn't really, sleeping a lot, and, physically this wasn't the right thing for me to be able to try to take that challenge on at that time. Since then, I said, I'm now guiding people that if you're interested, you really need to take this seriously at a younger age. And take classes earlier on, college classes in high school. So, those learnings have been passed on, and I'm grateful for the opportunity and the time that I did that. But because I had this gap in writing, I said, okay, let's work on that. This communication is super important. And so I'm going to go and do that. I didn't know what to do with that. So, so I took a ton of liberal arts classes. And then I fell in love with sociology. And
okay.
yeah. Sociology, the study of people.
Yeah.
Trends, right?
Yeah.
Like this all started back then. Like
Yeah.
I just like to see and watch and observe and understand and question.
Yeah.
So yeah, I did that. And actually why I went sociology was because U of I offered it to be a very flexible degree, which you could take a lot of different classes and
Sure.
majors. So I took anthropology and there's all kinds of environmental studies. It's just all
Sure.
counted for my degree. And I think it helped me just, have a wider lens of the world.
Sure.
And just kind of understand things a little bit differently because of all that. And I was so eager to graduate. I had to pay for my own education and so forth. I finished in 3 years. I was done in 3 years. I was like, I can't. I don't want to spend any more money. So,
Yeah.
So yeah, at the time it was doable. Honestly, it's not very doable today to manage, buying your own education with today's steep tuition rates.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah,
for sure. Interesting. Okay, so you're graduating from the U of I. You have a degree in sociology. How did you stumble across your first job?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So sociology is obviously not the most, appealing sort of degree out there. And I knew that. I realized that. My last 2 classes actually in my sociology program were in economics.
Got it.
So that just struck something in me that said, what am I doing? I should be doing business. So then I said, okay, well, I'm going to either get my bachelor's in business. Like I said, I'm pretty much done in 3 years with my bachelor's in sociology, or I'm going to go back really soon and get my MBA. And I just chose the latter because, it just made more sense. I have 2 degrees, right? So then after I got my degree, I went back to Chicago and I worked a couple of jobs. I had an offer for a banking job, and I kid you not, I think it was like $22,000 a year. Even then, it was bad. It was bad.
Yeah.
Even then, it was bad. It was downtown Chicago, and I lived. It was so much work. And I said, what am I doing? I can't start this career that I don't think I really want to do. So then that's when I really just pivoted and said, I'm gonna go get my MBA. And of course, the U of I program was an up-and-coming program then. I really liked at the time that they brought in a lot of international students, and I know they still do that now. So that really helped me, again, learn and grow with them, from them, as well as all of their experiences in that program. So yeah, I went back to Champaign. It was a comfort zone a little bit in a way too. Yep. And I love Champaign. I mean, we could talk about food probably there, but a lot of it's gone now, unfortunately.
It's gone.
Yeah. But not my barbecue place. My barbecue place is still there. So anyway, but yeah, that's kind of what happened with U of I, getting my degree there, and then I studied marketing and operations management. One of my professors, Mr. Petruzzi, was awesome in operations and really, really got me interested and brought in that math that I was still kind of missing from that sociology and marketing. Yeah, and I really, understood I like math and I want to get into the analytics thing. So from then on, I was working at a grocery store while I was in Champaign, the Schnucks Urbana store.
Yeah.
And I was very interested in consumer patterns there as well. Just studying the trends there, talking to store managers. And I just saw this potential of I want to understand more about this space, and I want to be able to kind of see it and feel it in business.
Yeah.
And so what I'm saying there is I did an internship in my MBA program in the middle of the 2 years, and I worked for Citigroup. And at that time, I struggled with seeing the impact of my work. So it was financials and managing databases, and it just didn't click in a way that I wanted to continue doing that for the rest of my life. But the grocery store, working in a grocery store, I just saw something. It felt like something. I was excited to be there. So when Super Value came on campus to recruit, I just talked to them at that point, and things kind of started from there. And they brought me in as a retail management trainee. The goal was for me to be a store manager.
Sure.
And I did a bunch of rotations across departments. I worked across different stores. And then I ended up in the best store on the planet. It was a Cub Food store. It doesn't exist anymore. Of course, the business has changed a little.
Yeah.
This Cub Food store in the north side of Chicago. And I ended up really, really enjoying and committing to grocery then because
Okay.
of that store, because organic was just starting to come in to play. This is 2002. And so right there in that intersection of Chicago was the divisiveness of class. And so this particular store had to bring in a lot of different types of merchandising,
Sure.
to appeal to everybody and manage that. Anyway, that my store manager there was Mike G, and he was Mike Guglielmo. He was the bomb, and again taught me just a lot. Gave me the confidence too.
Yeah.
Being a young woman in the industry, it's a little challenging,
Yeah.
but he gave me the confidence and the experience to see, how to look in the consumer view, how to merchandise better, and just how to treat people honestly.
Yeah. So you're in the stores. I'm curious how you found out about category management and then your first role as an analyst.
Yes. So it was a new business unit that was going to be happening where Super Value was decentralizing merchandising.
Yeah.
So as you know, in business, we decentralize and we centralize, and then we go back to decentralizing, and it's just this rotation and whatnot. So decentralization, I think, was needed actually at that point for Cub Foods to try to survive in Chicago, because the clients are quite different from them in Minnesota. So with that, Bill Gillespie was going to lead up this charge to build a team in Chicago. Yeah, and
I just talked to him. I literally just talked to him before I came to the interview.
You did? That's awesome. Yeah, he's a great guy. Yeah. That was great. So he was leading up this charge to build a merchandising team in Chicago. And somebody said, "Hey, are you interested?" And I said, "Yes, you know what? Let's do that. Let's see what this is about."
Yeah.
I then flew to Minnesota in January and February, and I was not happy.
No.
It was cold. But it was then that I actually saw what I could do in merchandising, and I learned how to be a category analyst, and I learned the basics of category management through a few folks. Becca Swan, if you're familiar with Neil Jackson, he's still at Super Value UNFI as well. They all kind of brought me in and taught me the basics, and I learned IRI and Nielsen. I became a big data nerd. I was just hungry for it. I just want to know. My first category that I assessed with my Nielsen and IRI data was frozen pizza in Chicago. I kid you not.
Perfect.
I kid you not. Yep. And Home Run Inn was on the incline, and I'm sure they're fine now. But it was fun to see even the frozen pizza category back then. So that's a little bit of how things kind of came to play. And then I enter into the category management space, and I get addicted. It's just fun to find the analysis, to really read through the data and interpret what is happening, and try to connect that with real life.
Right. So when I ran into you, you were a BDM.
Yes.
You were on Heat and Eat.
Yep.
And so could you talk about two things? One is kind of what was happening with Super Value at that time, and then your role as a BDM.
Yeah, that's really good. Yeah, Super Value at that point was actually centralizing. So now I'm in years later in my career with Super Value. Super Value bought Albertsons and suddenly became a $44 billion business out of nothing. With that, they had to reassess their skill and pool of people and kind of make some decisions there. So in the conversations I had, I was talking, a bit with Mr. Jim Smits, which I think you're familiar with as well. He helped guide and mentor me to discuss different options that I could do. Because at the time I had only had spent time in categories that were simpler. They were grocery and shelf stable, things that were more predictable.
Sure.
So he said, you know what, you could do that. Sure. And then he drew this Christmas tree, I remember. And he's like, you can work your way up if this is what you want to do and be an expert in, something like soda. I think he said something like that.
Yeah.
And then, or you could maybe jump around a little and, see how you can learn in different areas and how you could grow that way. And so I said, let's try that approach. And I said, just give me the toughest assignment you got. And he said, I think you could go into meat. And I said, the meat world, okay. I'm comfortable with touching meat and cooking meat. A lot of people aren't, but I didn't really know what I was getting into. And honestly, it was the best decision to go that route, to challenge me. I met you, Bill Thielen with Hormel, and a lot of folks, of course, Kip Gruel. I mean, a lot of these folks were there, and they brought me in. And not as an outsider, somebody that knew about soda, but somebody that was interested in learning and help bring in some value to help direct for the next set of merchandising for consumers as consumers were evolving and changing and being compressed with the time and feeling the pressures of not being able to do it all. Yes. So I was in that moment and I saw it happen. I lived it as a stepmom myself. Like, I understand, like, how do we make things simpler for our consumers and still healthy? And that's where he and Nate really stepped in.
Got it. So you have that role. I just remember, that team was fantastic, but there were also a lot of things going on with Super Value at the time. Yes. Our team kind of came off the business, but you had another role that you went into. Can you talk about that role? Because I'm totally not familiar with what you did.
Oh yeah, no, definitely. After that, I was asked to step into the specialty deli world. And I had so much fun there. And it was probably a space that I admired a lot in my time because I got to really understand different types of consumers and think through how the different segments of stores actually should stock.
Yes.
And in the specialty world, it's a little bit different. You can't have 20 types of hummus in every single store. Right. Or in Boston, you probably need to have 200 types of hummus, So this was a sort of a complex category, but it helped me understand the depth of consumers and how to manage that. And we were getting really deep at Super Value into category management principles. And I learned a ton during that experience and wrote some very intense papers and documents, I think, with the help of you and, of course, a few other people. And I had a ton of fun in that world. So much fun. And then I got Starbucks as the coffee business that we had in store. And that was also a ton of fun. And honestly, I was having a great time in these categories. I just didn't really see the light for the rest of the company at that point for it to turn green. And so that kind of was a little I don't know that hard. I'm committed. And I tried. I was there for 10 years. I tried. And I had a ton of fun, like I said, specialty foods and cheese. I went to France for a trip to study cave cheese and had dinner with the president of Lactalis in a 7-course meal in the middle of Paris. Very cool experiences. But you could see where my work ethic is. I want the whole thing to work. I want it to go forward. I want to progress. I want to be in a place of actual movement.
Yeah. So with that said, you move away from Super Value and you show up at US Foods.
Yes.
And I've had experience in food service. Food service is different from grocery.
Yes.
So
drastically.
So can you talk about that? What are some of the similarities, some of the differences, and what did you do? Because you had a pretty interesting project over there as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's right. U.S. Foods and food service is completely different, and I had no idea. I thought this could be really cool because I'm going to get to learn from chefs and the innovation there. It's quite different from what I knew, and actually the learnings and the trends are everywhere. It's not one group or another, and a lot of it is actually grocery. You learn from grocery and bring it back into food service. So I learned that, and because I had the grocery experience, I knew the trends, and I understood that. I went into the dairy and cheese space. This is a massive category for U.S. Foods, and highly complex with commodities. So quickly I had to learn how to assess commodity buying and trading and when to buy and when not to. That was interesting enough for a little bit. And then I also created a few items, private label items for them, but nothing too exciting. I negotiated a massive pasteurized cheese project, but again, these things didn't really get me excited.
Sure.
They were fine. What I wanted to do was change the game, right?
Sure.
Like I wanted to actually bring category management. We weren't quite there yet.
Yeah.
So they were really focused on, at the time, private label development and whatnot. That's a portion of category management, right?
Yep.
It's not the whole thing.
Yep.
We're missing a lot here. So from that point on, I actually asked for a greater challenge, something that I could just step into and learn.
Yeah.
And they had an opportunity. They were just starting the development of a chef store. So chef store is like a Restaurant Depot or GFS, and they're a physical footprint store where restaurateurs and different operators could come in and buy the product themselves. So I stepped into this space. We barely had a name, Chef Store. And like US Foods had just rebranded. They were US Food Service. So US Foods and now Chef Store. And, I didn't know what I was stepping into, but it ended up being a lot of fun. I was essentially project managing a lot of different areas to bring this together, really with a focus on merchandising. Sure. But I had a lot of different folks that I had to make sure we were getting to the right place to actually build out these stores and get the right merchandising in place. The biggest hurdle of it all is I thought it'd be like schematic. How do I do a planogram? No, I can figure that piece out. But wait a second. If you step back, what am I putting on the shelf? Am I putting this weird box on the shelf? I can't put that box on the shelf. I don't know how to read that box, right? So then it became an entire packaging project. How are we actually going to present ourselves on the shelf? Okay. And with UPCs and it was a complete game changer. Yeah. So a lot of fun in that world. And after a few stores, I was actually still living in Minnesota at the time. And working, I was working in Chicago or where these stores were being built, and after a period of time, I said, it's time for me to kind of move on here. You guys are up and running, it's good. So they had a send off for me, and I stumbled across one of the first shoppers for Instacart at that time.
I'm fascinated to learn because I don't know a lot about Instacart other than being a shopper.
Yeah, that was great. Thank you for your purchases. Another area that saves time, Instacart, right? Yeah. You don't have to get in the car and all this time stuff, right? Like similar to Heat and Eat. It's like, how do I give back people that time to do whatever they want? It could be sleeping. Who cares? Yeah. Right. But that time is so valuable. So with Instacart, I came across one of the first shoppers in Chicago, and I, just asked them about 49 to 100 questions. I can't remember, as to can you show me the app? Can you tell me about how you found out about it? And what did you do? How did it work when you shopped at the Costco? We went through everything. So you stopped an Instacart person in store and interviewed them. That's right. Okay. Yep. So I had to understand a little bit more about this whole thing. And it was quite a learning experience. And I decided then, before we had tried WebVan and everything else. I was on that business for sure. Absolutely. Home grocer and WebVan. Yeah. Right. We tried all these things. Yep. It just wasn't the right time. And for some reason right there, I felt it. I'm like, okay, it's literally in my fingertips. It's in everybody's fingertips. So I'm gonna find Instacart. And so I did. And Instacart was actually going to launch in the Twin Cities. And I approached them, and initially I said, I'll take whatever you got. And wow. Yeah. I wanted to be a part of it. I knew I was going to be able to prove myself. I just had to get in, And so I became what is it called, the shift leader in a store. And I learned everything about how to run that. And I was only there for a month, but I learned everything about the operations from that level inside Targets and Whole Foods. Oh, wow. So actually it was a great experience to really understand everything on the base level, and the opportunity is there as well. So from then on, they asked me to be an area manager with the Twin Cities, and then we started growing into St. Louis. St. Louis was amazing. I couldn't even believe how impactful bringing Instacart into the community of St. Louis, the communities of St. Louis, and how quickly they grasped onto it and like actually grew from it. It was like St. Louis, honestly, was probably the point where we all stepped back and said, we got something.
What was it about St. Louis that might have been different, or what did you do differently?
What we did differently in St. Louis is we looked at St. Louis beyond St. Louis. We looked at the other parts of around St. Louis.
Yeah.
And before then, we weren't totally certain on the demand in the outer areas outside the metros. And that was proven wrong right there. That actually this is a need that across a lot of communities are interested in.
Wow. So what does an area manager do, just so I'm clear on that?
Yeah, it kind of depends on a lot. Kind of like a lot of my roles, it's like, well, what is the priority then?
Okay.
A lot of it was I was launching in the different markets in the U.S.
Okay.
And that means maybe getting supplies out like T-shirts or training shoppers, finding shoppers. Maybe if they were going to be internal shoppers that were part of the Instacart community, like not 1099s, then there was a little bit more work that had to be done there. And then also partnerships with the retailers like at St. Louis Schnucks, working with them because like we were embedded in those stores, working in them and devising some processes to make sure that both sides were efficient in the execution.
Got it. Yeah. So you go from area manager to operations. So are those similar, or is that a big shift? Okay.
No, it's just a progression into area operations, and then when I left Instacart senior operations manager, it's all progression within the same space. But how the work changes every time because every time we're changing as a company and we're growing. So
So you've hit, store management, category management in food service, operations with a number of big names. And so how did Amazon come into play?
Yeah, that's a great question. Amazon, of course, had approached a few different times in my career, and it was never the right time. And at this point, I was going to make a change within Instacart into a different role. So it was kind of a pause for a second. So I said, well, Amazon's actually calling at the same time. We just have a conversation. And they were in dire need for the experience I had. And I literally had the exact experience that they needed because I worked in the Whole Food stores that they had. Yeah. So they offered me an opportunity to grow with them, and I said, okay, let me give this a shot. And then we, went over there with Whole Foods business. And similar to a lot of what even Instacart went through, it made more sense for the actual grocery chain and store to embed their own shoppers in, not somebody else coming in. Right. If you could think about the efficiencies.
Oh, right? Absolutely. Yeah.
So that obviously became very obvious. And then we trained the Whole Foods team to take it on. So now it's just one big embedded machine versus Amazon and Whole Foods.
Yeah.
And then that offered me an opportunity to look around. And Amazon had an open role for, I think the requisition said, new job, create a new business. Must have fun or something. I don't know. It was just like, okay, I could see there's a lot here.
Yeah.
So I set up a call with the hiring manager, and then the rest is kind of history there, where I came in to launch Amazon Today, and it's now defunct, which is kind of a little bit of how Amazon, goes to test different things, and then maybe learns and reiterates and changes or closes units and whatnot. But Amazon Today is actually a super cool concept.
I've never heard. I don't know. So what is it, and what did you have to do?
Yeah. So like DoorDash and Instacart are now in Best Buy or Victoria's Secret. So that was kind of the concept of Amazon Today, to be able to leverage retailers with physical footprints already in the U.S. in strip malls or other different, places, and then deliver from there, take it to the customer. So that place, the Best Buy or whatever, GNC, we partnered with GNC.
Sure.
They would actually bag the product, stage it, and then we would have one of our drivers, the Amazon network driver, pick it up and deliver it to the customer same day. So it's the same day. Yeah. So it was, again, this sort of like, how do we get speed? Sure. And also, how do we actually improve the categories and the availability that we have of product, right? Because it's so hard to carry clothing, right?
Yeah.
It's a difficult thing. So why reinvent the wheel and try to carry, 100 SKUs of clothes and actually leverage what's already in stock in stores?
Okay.
So it was actually pretty exciting, and I learned a ton from it. I think ultimately, there's some other priorities with Amazon, but
they turn things all the time. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, but I had a lot of fun. So my role there was to launch and bring in the stores and bring them on board, make sure that there was technically everything was kind of connected at least. Yeah. And I say kind of because that's just kind of how it works. As you're launching and you're figuring it out at the same time. Okay. Which is all chaos. But that's kind of what I like. So I asked for chaos. I got chaos, and I learned a lot from that experience. And again, like a really cool concept to really leverage the physical footprints of stores. There's still some more work to be done there from some Amazon's competitors, at least.
Sure. So I do have to ask the question because a lot of people have not worked for Amazon, but it's always kind of interesting. What is it like to work at Amazon? I mean, you said chaos, but I'm sure there's more. Can you talk a little bit about that business?
Yeah, I'd say it very much depends on your manager and your leaders by unit. So I would say initially, my first role at Amazon, it was I don't know what the word nurturing. I'm going to say nurturing.
Okay, sure.
Than later on in my next experience. Okay. And not that I needed to be nurtured, but it was more like a very, very intense on goals and like the focus on the numbers and that was a little brutal actually to have to continue to discuss a few of these sort of why we couldn't quite get to where we wanted to get to and not really make progress because we didn't have the right support or whatever it was. It was just hard because every week, we're not making it, but it's because of these, reasons. The retailer themselves doesn't have the tech stack for it right now. Right. So I can't make them do it. So, that was a little frustrating, but I would say that it's challenging, and Amazon has a low tenure for a reason. So I would, there's a lot to learn there. There's a lot to learn maybe on what style of work you like, and that's part of what I learned a lot through my Amazon experience. Is I actually value being in spaces that allow me to produce something, right? Yeah. And I just talk about it. Like if I'm making a decision, I want to see what I'm deciding and I want to execute on it. And that was a little harder at Amazon for me.
Okay, got it. Yeah. Well, if I think about your career, I think about a couple things. One is, you have to have something exciting, otherwise you get bored.
Yes.
You want to see the results.
Yes, I do.
And you like to do things that are new and innovative.
That's correct.
So why Sesh?
All right, Sesh. Okay. A year ago, I went to Sweden, Gothenburg, for the first time ever. And we have a good friend and her family that are from there. And I fell in love. I fell in love with Gothenburg, with Huvudstaden, which is they're another part of Sweden. And the one thing I noticed from a consumer was just about nicotine pouches. And everything else in the world seemed normal to me in Sweden. Yeah. But nicotine pouches. So I was like, what is this? To everybody. And so they're like, they come in a container like this. Okay. A white container, right? And what they are is essentially nicotine in the different form of usage. It's a fleece pouch, like a tea bag, I guess, tiny tea bag. I call them pillows. And Sweden is almost a smokeless country entirely. Very few percent of the population smoke. And it's not, cigarettes and tobacco aren't really accessible there. So what the government has really found is product like nicotine pouches are just less bad in the whole scheme of it. We all know nicotine is an addictive chemical. So like, how do we help make it less bad? And that's where nicotine pouches come in. And I learned a lot in those 2 weeks I was at Sweden. And I interviewed everybody.
There you go.
Yeah, I'm just like, tell me more. And some of them had snus, like the snus that is tobacco based leaf. Some of them had just different, and everybody was passionate about it. And they all try mine. I'm like, okay, I don't really use nicotine pouches, but I tried a couple, and I thought it was an interesting concept, and one that I clearly saw was dominant in Sweden. And so seeing that, similar to my Instacart experience, I'm like, there's something here. Something is here. So I retained that information. I'm going back to Sweden soon because I love it so much, just for fun. Sure. And now it comes a point where things are wrapping up with Amazon. Yeah. And Sesh posted an open role, and I said, you know what? Let's talk about this. Based in Austin. I love the concept of nicotine pouches from a startup. Not an existing business, really. And once I talked with a few folks there, it became kind of a no-brainer, honestly. Strong, hardworking people. They're super respectful. And they've offered me the opportunity, yes, I came into demand plan, but to really do a lot more than that. And so right now I'm actually focused on trying to fine tune some of our processes and how we operate, because there's a lot, obviously, as you grow that we have to figure out from Excel onward. So that's a lot of what I'm working on now. And the other piece that's super important to me, I talked about this earlier, is the consumer. Yeah. So I am not truly that consumer, but I have been studying them now, really religiously, as much as I can. Sometimes Reddit, I don't know. It's kind of hard to find, how to, find a consumer here. Yeah. But it's a growing base, and it's one where I could see definitely this shift of vaping and smoking to nicotine pouches happen pretty quickly in the U.S. And it may not be like Sweden, but the convenience of something like this is there. I saw somebody at the airport, they were spitting chew into a Mountain Dew bottle. That just seems unnecessary. This is an easier path to get through the day if that's what's needed.
Nice. Well, Martha, we have been in the trenches for a while, so appreciate you carrying us through your journey, a fascinating one. But I want to allow you to take a little breath. Yeah. And we're going to come up for air.
Finally, coming up for air.
We talked initially about Chicago, but there's more to Martha. So if you could share a little bit about your personal life, where you're living now and things like that.
Yeah. So I live in Austin, Texas, and in a great little community here. I feel really lucky, actually, to have found where we're at. I have 2 dogs, and they're my babies. There's kind of a picture on my mouse pad.
There they go.
Yeah, that's Wrigley, and that's Finnegan. And they just got haircuts.
Did you say Wrigley?
Wrigley, yeah, Wrigley.
Oh.
Yes. You know why. Yes.
Okay.
And Finnegan came to us as named Finnegan. But he's my baby. He's my little cuddler. They're both my babies. And I live in Austin with my wife. We've been together for a long, long time, 17 years or so, but only married a few years. And not that changes anything, but we have one of our stepsons that lives with us, my stepson that lives with us. Her son, Chase, and he's going to school at Texas State University. Okay. So we're having a lot of fun here, actually. And good. And actually, my wife started a dog business. So I get to see dogs that are fun and golden retrievers that I don't have to own because they're really shitty, but they're cool for a day or two.
For a little bit, yeah.
Yeah. And there's a little baby golden retriever, Stella. She's my baby. But again, she just visits, and I actually love this dog business. For me, it brings me a lot of joy as a side person watching it.
Sure. Awesome. Well, last question for you as we close. You've seen a lot, you've done a lot. So if you were to, give some advice or recommend, something around career or experience, what would you share with our audience based on your journey?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I would say, I think there's one really core thing in me is that I have learned how to be humble and respect people and listen to them, because I just knew that. I know that's important. I went to a manufacturing plant even this week. And again, there's this humbleness that you need to carry as a leader for people to then tell you what is actually going on and how to learn from that, right? So through that, you could look at it respect in different levels as you work with different individuals and organization. But I think that level of humbleness and respect has been super important. But secondly, and very, very importantly, equally importantly, is the drive to learn. You have to learn. You have to continue to learn. And even when we talked about AI, you have to learn about AI. You have to get into the trenches there, and you have to continue to embrace innovation and change and opportunity. And that's part of learning. Just learn, keep adapting and learning, keep your eyes open and seeing, what is the next thing to try to learn a little bit about. You don't have to be an expert.
Yeah.
But just know a little bit and see how you can implement it into your day-to-day. I was surprised with AI in some formula writing recently. I'm like, I can't even believe it. How much AI helped me improve it. Yeah. And it's something that would take me 3 or 4 days. Took me 5 minutes.
Yes.
Yeah. It's incredible. So learn.
Awesome. Well, Martha, this has been fantastic. We finally caught up. So thank you for joining us on the show. We really appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you all. Appreciate it. And take care. Happy to do it again sometime. See ya.
Awesome.
Bye.
Well, you've just listened to another amazing episode of ARCast. Please look forward to more interesting people in the weeks to come. And also, please don't forget to share ARCast with your colleagues. So for feedback, topic suggestions, or if you want to appear on the show, please go to www.catman.global/ARCast. All I need for you to do is scroll down to the bottom. There's a submission form there. It comes directly to me, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. And recorded at Studio Xerxes in Minnesota. Our theme music was brought to you by Bryant Lowry. And a special thanks to my friends at the Association of Retail and Consumer Professionals for their promotion and management. Well, that's it for me today. I'm signing off, and we'll see you on our next episode. Bye.